Hello there. So today's video is going to be a bit different. I have decided that I would like to discuss a topic that has been looming on the top of my head, and I did not sort of want to go through the excess of creating a very complex video structure for it because that would limit me in expressing what I thought. As you've seen my videos in the past, I believe that by now you know that I do like to sort of create a certain distance, let's say, between you and me in order to create a more fantasy-driven, more engaging experience for you as the listener. So now I would like to sort of implement my own thoughts and opinions and emotions into topics. So this is my attempt at doing so. And of course, in the background, as we discuss today's topic, I'm going to be playing Prologue of Knights of the Old Republic 2 because I do think that's a very therapeutic visual and experience, and it's very fun. So the main question, as you have seen in the title, is whether or not Kreia was right in attempting to destroy the Force, to kill the Force. This question popped up on my Discord a few weeks back. A friend of mine asked me this, and I was really pondering on this. I'm a person that tends to overthink things, then I try to explore as many scenarios as I can. So in this video, you'll be going on a really quick journey with me through these thoughts and how I perceive this. So whether or not she was right, I straight away can't give a clear answer, as with anything with life that I've come to learn, is that you don't really have an answer that is very black or white. So even taking away the context to how you may feel personally about Kreia as a character, if she is evil, if she is good, if she is neutral, a lot of people describe her as Grey Jedi. I personally do not believe she is Grey Jedi. I don't view her in the Jedi spectrum at all. But that is your own personal thought. Now, with that said, if we eliminate that perspective and opinion of her character, whether or not the act of destroying the Force is good or evil, that is the main question here. So, in order to grasp whether that is something good, evil, noble, whatever, we do need to grasp first what the consequences of such an act would be. So the death of the Force would result in a shockwave that would deafen/kill every single being capable of hearing it. Now, I do not know, I didn't research too much to know how this would affect beasts and animals and creatures who can feel and sense the Force. I suspect that is a primal instinct, so I do not know how they would be impacted by this, but I suspect the stronger the bond is to the Force, the more one is hit by it. So I would assume that this would not result in a mass decay and destruction of animals and creatures. But when it comes to humanoids, which is the main discussion here, if we are going to be a bit selfish and neglect these poor beasts and animals, when it comes to human beings and humanoid beings, species that are similar to us, etc., in the Star Wars universe, that would result in their deaths/deafening to the Force. Now, Atris discussed this matter with the exile, and she pointed out that most people are not prepared for this the way Surik was. Most people do not have her strength when it comes to these things. She thus indicated that it is not a guarantee that all humanoid beings would be killed by this shockwave. So even if we take on the extreme example of, let's say, 98% and over that of all humanoids in the universe would be killed by the shockwave. So there will be individuals still remaining. So if that were to occur, you are left with 2%, you're left with a handful of humanoids who can no longer hear the Force, no longer are affected by the Force, but are free. They are now free individuals, and their choices are not limited or directed by the Force. The question here, whether that is a valid enough reason to eliminate 98% of the universe. So with this 2% now left, if we apply the factor of time, if we apply 5, 10,000 years, 20,000 years, they will begin to multiply again. They will begin to prosper again. No doubt this act would have reverted the civilization with time. As time progresses, they would develop and they would grow, and they would reach a point where the universe would be just as populated as it was before this great thing occurred. And at that point, if you were an individual in that universe and someone were to ask you what you thought about the fact that Kreia destroyed the Force and freed us all from its limitations, you would probably say, yes, that was worth it. Of course, this on Kreia's part required a great deal of foresight, because destroying the Force, I believe that she really didn't care what happened to her. I do not know if it is a selfless act, as it is a sort of vengeful act on her part, to hate the Force. Remember, she hates the Force. It's not that she loves the universe. The motivations, I will say, most certainly are not as noble as one would think, I suppose, because the motivation is not to free the world. Her motivation is to kill the Force. That's her motivation. Freedom comes as a result of that. So I personally think that her wanting to do that is justified, and she was right in wanting it. I personally do not think Kreia expected to succeed. Her greatest success, and that's why the character of Kreia is so important, is that her role, her achievement, transcends the game universe. The Star Wars universe is sort of, that's why I really enjoy her as a character. She bleeds into our own world because she made a point. She made a point about the whole Star Wars universe, and you, as a gamer, as a listener, as an observer, you are watching this, and you perceive through her that the Force is a manipulator. You perceive it that way. And every time you see a movie, every time you see a comic, you will perceive it the way that she wanted you to perceive it. You will perceive the Force as this guiding hand that is not always good. It is not always bad, but it is beyond your control what's going to happen next. Every choice that you make is already made for you. And that's why I think she as a character is so important, because she sort of breaks down that barrier as well. She's not limited to Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. I think that she didn't expect to succeed. She was proud with Surik, etc. That was not her. That was I guess her goal initially, but it's just seeing Surik as this individual, perhaps this slave that doesn't know that is enslaved. Perhaps he can't break free just yet. But with her guidance, we have sort of given this slave the sight to see that they are being guided by the Force. And then just that perception changes the way that you interact with the world. If you perceive the world as something that sets a path for you that is predefined, if you perceive it as such, then you will begin to question your choices. If there is a destiny, for us the Force is our destiny, the belief in destiny. If there is a destiny, I believe that knowing that destiny would change it. And if you know or sort of expect certain outcomes, you can modify your approach. You can look ahead, That's what differs us as human beings from beasts, from animals, who do not really think ahead. If you have a cat, you'll see that if you close this cat in a confined room and give it food and water for a time, the cat will be okay. They will not be thinking about the external ways. They will not think that in order to change my outcome, next time someone enters the room, I need to sprint out of it. They will only arrive at that conclusion later on when faced with a problem. So in conclusion, I would say that Kreia's attempts to kill the Force and Kreia's motivations, I think she was right to attempt to do it. It would have resulted in insane atrocities, and if I was in that universe, I would probably say, I do not want you to do that. But from a very, very distant objective standpoint, the universe throughout 100,000 years from that moment on is more likely to have benefited from that act. So as brutal as that act is, objectively speaking, I do believe she was right. Subjectively speaking, one would argue that subjectively the outcome is the same, because my subjective thought is that I side with her because I like her as a character. But if I was, let's say, Mitra Surik, I would subjectively say, no, that's not good. That's not good, because that destroys my life, other lives, that causes so much damage. Yes, there you go. Objectively, she was right. Subjectively, she was not, from my perspective. What I quite like about her is that her character, when discussing these things, it is not limited to Knights of the Old Republic, to the Sith Lords. It extends farther outside of that. That's why I like this character so much. I have seen other characters that I quite like, but when we take one character such as Revan did what he did, and he changed the universe of that era, you know. In the grand scheme of things, you know, he definitely made an impact thousands of years into the future. However, when it comes to Kreia is very near and dear to my heart, because that character not only brings into question the perceptions of the characters within Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, the Sith Lords, it also brings into question our perception as a viewer of the Star Wars universe. Because she doesn't question whether killing a certain human being or individual is justified. She wants to kill something that connects every single expansion of the Star Wars universe. Thus, if she had succeeded, we would not have seen all the, you know, if we were to assume, let's assume that the Star Wars universe is sort of a cohesive reality. If she were to succeed in that, you would not have Darth Vader, you would not have Palpatine, you would not have any of the Jedi that existed in the films, you would not have any films, because this took place, if we ignore the discussion of what is official law and what is not official law, let's just ignore that for the sake of simplicity. Had she succeeded, none of that would have come to pass, because it would have made such a big impact. And that's why I like her, because her impact would have it spans throughout the entirety of the Star Wars universe. And it's most useful for me because so many topics that she discussed are applicable to real life. Obviously, a lot more contextual and a lot more advanced and more specific to the Star Wars universe. But when applied to our own lives, they make sense. They make sense with charity, that charity doesn't always result in a good outcome. They make sense that manipulation is both used as a tool to heal as well as to harm others. So these things, it's very useful. She as a character is very useful to me when it comes to perceiving the world around me, that sometimes lying is acceptable. Lying is a tool. These are all tools. And, you know, if you live in the real world, you have used these tools, you know, to help people, to harm people perhaps, I do not know. But the point in all of that is that regardless of what the goal is for you, regardless of what the goal is for you when you want to help people, when you want to damage, manipulate, etc., the point is that you are aware of what this cause is. If you are aware of the damage you are causing when you choose to do a certain act, then that is, I'm not going to say that's fine, but that is fine for you subjectively. You are intellectually using this to your own benefit because you take into account the negative outcomes of these things. And that's what happens with her. She was very aware of every single negative outcome that comes. For instance, when she said, if you're going to help people, if you take on their challenges, if you know that you're weakening them and you still want to do this, then if that is your choice, proceed and weaken them, drain them entirely, and then leave them. If that is your choice, you know, that's what I like about her character, is that ethics don't play a part in it. And I think it's useful in such a fictional universe that we have the freedom to explore possibilities with the ethics stripped away. Then we can see the functionings and we can see the possibilities. And then, of course, when it comes to actions and to acting, to apply this. This not only helps us make choices, and sometimes to make difficult choices, sometimes to choose to harm one person in order to benefit others, but it also helps us to understand other people. It helps us perceive them and their intentions And even if they do not realize the impact that they're having, we can anticipate that impact and sort of, use that either against them or use that to protect ourselves, etc. That's why people teach you manipulation techniques in order that you become defended from them, So that's what I really liked about her character, is that I do not think Kreia was very judgmental in the term that we tend to use. She wasn't very judgmental in the sense of, what is judgment these days? Being judgmental is typically inaccurate, right? So typically you would judge someone based on the way they look, but judgments on their own, speaking of the matter, are not a bad thing. A judgment needs to be made in order for you to function in everyday life. And that's what I enjoyed about her, that she didn't really care. Probably, I'm assuming that one Kreia, if she were to exist among us, she would be careless about how you look, about your choices when it comes to personal preferences, style, behavior, language, etc. I do think that she would judge you more by the choices you make, by the way that you manipulate people, by the outcomes that you choose to follow. And that's why I think that this entire thing of her wanting to destroy the Force is so much more complex than it appears. We've seen her lie a lot. So I do not think, as I said, I do not think that she actually wanted to destroy the Force. I think she wanted to make a point, and she did that. And I think she succeeded in what she wanted. If we attempt to veer into her mind, because the writer who did create her had an issue that I sort of side with. It's that the Force is this invisible thing that guides us, and it is a problem. And she explores that problem. And I think she as a character, I'm not viewing her as sort of, don't mistake my appreciation of her as a character to sort of fangirl over this, to sort of think that's the best character ever. No, the character, well, to me it is, but the character achieved its purpose, which is she didn't destroy the Force, but she made us question it, and she made us think about it. If you take her teaching seriously, and then watch the films, and then watch the comics and cartoons, and you will see that indeed she was very correct in this. And these topics are not discussed, but they are sort of weaved through the entirety of the universe. Whoever out there says that, this minuscule, irrelevant character in the Star Wars universe, well, let me tell you, people look her up, people talk about her still. It's been years and years and years, and nothing official came out about Kreia as a character, but people are still talking about it. People probably will continue to talk about it, because it is such a rich, genuine perspective. It is not fabricated to just appeal to a listener. That's why I sort of am not the biggest fan of these later films of Star Wars, because they give the vibe of that they are made to give you what you want. We observe artists, we observe shows and movies in order to see what people think, to see people express themselves. That's the point of self-expression. Even if it, what is writing but, a form of expressing an idea, a thought that you think is interesting. At the very least, something that's interesting. It doesn't even have to be a big statement about the political views or beliefs or what is right or what is wrong. It can even be something that you don't believe in, something that you're against, but it's interesting and you're expressing yourself. And you as a writer, you think that is good. And then I am sitting here reading your book or watching your film, and I'm perceiving that, and I'm with you on that. Even if I don't agree with what is coming out, I'm intrigued by it. But the problem that I have with these later films is that they are manufactured, and I hope you understand what I mean when I say that term. I don't mean, literally. They are sort of made to give you what the creator thinks you want. That you wanted to see. Spoiler alert, you wanted to see Han Solo and an emotional scene with him. Thus, what is more emotional than having a child kill its own parent? To me, it didn't have that impact. That scene did not have that impact because it felt as if you're giving a child something that they have been asking for, And it's always a much bigger joy when you receive something you didn't even know you needed, you didn't even know you wanted. That's why these characters, like Kreia, And like Revan and any good character out there are so good because they are an expression of a thought. And as soon as you put that in, just a thought, it evolves, it grows, it blossoms into something, you know. Whereas if it's produced specifically for the purpose of let's produce it so that people will enjoy it, that's it, it loses that magic. It can still be something that you can, you know, turn on and watch, and you can just observe, and you know, who doesn't like visual effects and acting and all that, but it lacks that special something. And that's why this character is so precious for me, because it expresses a thought. You can see the creator's thought. If someone were to approach you and said, I wrote Kreia, I wrote Revan, I created, I don't know, Anakin Skywalker, what the hell, you know, I created that, you would be intrigued and think, well, what did you really think about that? How did you feel about that? What would you feel about this character? With that in mind, what do you think about Luke Skywalker? What do you think about this universe? It all already intrigues you because you see the author in it, you know. And as soon as you see these books that are manufactured, that's why I'm also not the biggest fan of people who just print out books, you know, by the dozen. And I'm just thinking there's so many thoughts there that it doesn't feel like that thought is refined. It feels manufactured. Of course, I'm a human being. I could be wrong. This is just my perception. But I would be a lot more intrigued. Whereas if you were to tell me I wrote the last script for the final Star Wars film, I would already be a bit, okay, so what, like, I would never ask that person, what do you think about Kreia? What do you think about Revan? Because I will know already what I'll get, because there's really nothing you can use to apply to that. I don't feel expression in that. Well, that's about it. I'm going to go now. This has been a really long video where I just wanted to express some thoughts. If you made it this far, congratulations. I am shocked to see you here. I really am. So that's about it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. I was thinking of creating a complete story video for Revan as well, and I was thinking of perhaps documenting that whole process on YouTube, to just at the very least go through like creating a new template, because I would not duplicate the same template that I have for Kreia in terms of the interface and everything there. So I would you know, go through creating that and designing sort of the layout of the video. So I would be quite intrigued to see what you think about that. That's about it for this video, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for listening. Bye.